podcast featuring ordinary women who have overcome and done extraordinary things. I'm your host, Farrah Haidar. Joining me today is Jen Hardy. In 2014, Jen was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, a chronic autoimmune neuromuscular disease that causes weakness in the skeletal muscles. Even with care, Jen's symptoms continued to increase, causing her to spend 6 separate weeks in the hospital and have 20 separate day-long infusions. With 7 children in the home, Jen was desperate to find a way to stay positive. In 2018, Jen's doctors informed her that there was nothing more they can do other than make her comfortable. Moving her family to a paradise, Jen found a way back to her health and is now committed to helping as many women as possible. Through it all, Jen never gave up hope and continued to work. She is an author, podcast host, speaker, and community builder. She has written a book and 3 journals that focus on empowering women, spreading positivity, and helping people set and meet their goals. She is also the host of 2 podcasts, Fabulous Over 50 and Medical Gaslighting. Through these podcasts, she provides a platform for women to share their experiences, opinions, and knowledge, and inspire others to lead a fulfilling life. Jen's mission with her podcast is to help people live their best lives and make the world a better place. Jen, reading your story is such an inspiration. I can't even imagine managing 7 children, even though I'm from a family of 9. I can't imagine managing 7 children, let alone being chronically ill while doing that. But I really wanted to hear from you. How did this all start?
Thanks. Well, I'll tell you, having 7 children is, I feel like once you have 3, you're outnumbered. It doesn't really matter after that point. Honestly, for us, It was just, we love it. But being not feeling well and having that many children is really hard. And so when I got really sick, I had a 2 and a 4-year-old and 5 teenagers. So you can imagine it was utter chaos. And it took me about a year, from 2014 to 2015. And I just kept looking online, like, and my mom bought me a tablet because I couldn't even hold a computer. That's how weak I was. It was wild. Wow. And so I had my little tablet and I was Googling, how to be a parent from the hospital, how do you clean your house when you can't get out of bed? Like, crazy things. And I found a lot of people complaining about being sick because it is miserable, but no one was giving me answers, how do I do these things? And so after about a year of complaining to my husband about it, he said, if it doesn't exist, you need to create it. Yeah. And so I started blogging, super ugly. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just, taking the systems that I had created, putting them out there. And then I wrote a book, and then I heard about this podcasting thing. And I thought, this is the way to do it, because then if you don't feel well, you can lay in bed and close your eyes and still listen. Yeah. And that's where that started.
So take us back a little bit more. How did you get diagnosed? Like, what happened to go and seek this diagnosis, and then what went on from there?
See, nobody asked that question. That's a great question. So throughout my life, I hadn't felt well. I spent a lot of time in laying down and not wanting to play sports. I'd always beg to be taken out, and people who don't usually do that, we found out when I was 40 that I have asthma. And that's why I didn't want to run and do things, because I was always tired. But then in 2012, my husband had a tumor and we thought it was cancer. It was very scary. And while my sister-in-law was there helping me take care of all these kids while I was taking care of my husband, I fell down the stairs twice. And she said, you may be hurt because you don't look so good and you've done it twice. And I was like, no, I don't have time for that. I just have to keep going. And she said, no, we're going to take you to the doctor. And so I went, they did an x-ray, and then they did an MRI, and they discovered that I was missing most of the muscle in my lower back.
Oh, man.
And so the first doctor panicked, sent me to a specialty hospital. But then he took one look at my eyes and he said, oh, you have a drooping eye. You have myasthenia gravis. So he ignored, I also have muscular dystrophy, but he completely ignored that and treated me for myasthenia, which, yeah. And in that treatment, I got some medication that didn't respond well with the muscular dystrophy, which is what led to all the stays in the hospital. But we didn't know that at the time.
Oh, wow. So I can just imagine, I have 2 children, and if I feel like if I get sick, it's like oh my God, like, what are we going to do? Who's going to take them? All that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about how you managed 7 kids. I mean, again, coming from a family of 9, I have full appreciation of the chaos, right? I mean,
Right.
how old was your oldest when
So my oldest was 19, but she was in the Navy at that time, so she was gone.
she was gone? Yeah.
So, so she was, and which was another stress because she was actually being deployed to the Gulf and doing all these things.
Right.
So there was that. And so honestly, so we lived out in the country. We lived in Tennessee, and because we had so many kids and I wanted them to all have rooms, we lived far, right? Because
Yeah.
we had taken a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and turned it into a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house so that, they could be relatively separate, and have their space. But in that, we were far away from everybody. And so my husband's military, but we were an hour away from all of his military people. So we didn't have much support, to be honest, at all. We didn't have any family in the area. So, quite honestly, it was my teenagers that ran that house. I have to give them full credit, especially my older daughter and my oldest son did so much at the time, because my husband, like I said, was military. You don't get to just take a lot of time off, and because he worked far away, he was gone about 12 hours a day. So they literally ran everything. But what I was able to do from bed was come up with some systems in so that they could get things done much easier, with a lot less work, because it's a lot to put on kids. And we were
Yeah.
homeschooling at the time. So I was homeschooling them from bed as well.
Wow. I so I can appreciate that. Again, I'm one of 9. When I was born, my mom had just moved from Lebanon to the U.S. She didn't drive, and we were in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, out in like again remote. She didn't have any family. Oh, wait, her sister lived across the street, but her sister was not very helpful. Anyways, so but my siblings, I was the youngest, and my siblings really did, like, my eldest, one of my older siblings, she registered me in every school I've ever been to. Like elementary school. I remember she was the one that registered me at when my mom got phone calls. Like, my mom didn't pick me up ever from school. My siblings did. you know so I totally appreciate what you're saying. It makes them strong. Look, my siblings are fabulous people. They're awesome and very ambitious and very accomplished and all that. So there's a silver lining. But so I can totally appreciate that you came up with these systems to make it easier for them, and then you started putting it online. So what I'm really fascinated about your story is a lot of people, I think, would have caved, right? Would have just caved under the pressure of being chronically ill and having all this. What do you think made you seek a different solution?
Yeah, that is you ask all the questions nobody's ever asked. That's so interesting. Um, Honestly, I am a rebel. I was a very rebellious kid. And I've just always done things different than everybody else. And I think that actually has helped me. In fact, we were just talking about that, my husband and I, in that I don't just give in to what everybody says. And I think, okay, there's got to be a better way, and I want more, whatever it is, and not in a selfish way. You know what I
No.
mean? Um, but just, like when we were in we were in Los Angeles, and housing prices were crazy, and I was like, no, we are buying a house, and I found a way for us to get a house, and
Mm-hmm.
because we did that when we moved to Tennessee, we could get a fairly nice size house.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't accept no. I
Yeah.
just don't accept no.
Okay.
It's not an answer that I want to take.
Well, obviously you haven't taken it. So, what did you learn most about when you were chronically ill? Like, what was the biggest takeaway for you?
That every day is very precious. Um, it's just that every day is precious because I shouldn't be here, right? So every day that I'm here is a gift. Every day that I can walk is a gift. And every time that I can see my kids or talk to my kids is a gift. And I think that's my dad passed away when he was 53. I took care of him as he was dying. And I think that started that thought with me. And not in a depressing way, like, oh my gosh, we could just die at not like that, but just to see the beauty in everything and think today's a gift, you
Yeah.
know?
Have you talked to your kids at all about their view on it?
Yes.
You don't have to
I
share,
No,
but
I can share. So, okay, so I grew up reading like Little House on the Prairie, right? And I always I think about this all the time where, like Laura's like, I do all these things for my family and she was a little bit, but they all did everything for each other. Everyone worked together and did all this stuff. And so when I got sick, I anticipated my kids are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, my mom doesn't feel good. We can't wait to do things to help her." And that is not how they saw it
no.
at all. Not at all. In fact, some of them just completely ignored it altogether, and it really hurt my feelings. And so I've had a chance to go back and talk to them and say, "What in the world?" Like I needed you. What I know you were my kid, but still what happened? And so one of my daughters came to me and she said, "Look, we knew that everyone thought you were going to die. We all thought you were going to die, but we could not let ourselves think about that. And so we had to ignore the fact that you were sick altogether. So we were not trying to hurt you, but we couldn't deal with it. Um, so there wasn't a lot of talk about my whatever. We didn't talk about it. I mean, everyone kind of knew. But one great thing that came out of it that was really fun because our bedroom we had turned the garage into a master suite and so there was 5 steps to go into the house and I couldn't go up those steps, so for 4 months I was stuck in my bedroom. There was a bathroom, yes. But my kids would bring in camp chairs because we were always the house where everybody came. We had all my kids and everyone else's kids and whatever, and so there would be a party in my room with these camp chairs sitting around my bed. And so at first their friends were like, this is kind of strange, because a lot of parents apparently don't let their kids in their bedroom at all. And
Okay.
but we would just have this big, thing all the time. And honestly, that is my best memory out of that time. Is just having these big groups and just hanging out in my room, and I don't know, it was really nice.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First, when you have that many kids, every day is a party. Like it's just as there's so many people. Like you bring one friend over. I mean, we were 9. Bring one friend over, you got 18 people. It's a party. Um, like that's what happens. But also, I think people make the mistake sometimes of thinking that if you're surrounded by tragedy, there can be no joy. And I think that's a big mistake. I grew up in a civil war, yet I have a lot of memories of very joyful moments, because we're human, you
Yeah.
know, and we'll always seek joy. So I have a question for you. So you went at in 2018, I believe, and the doctor said, "This is it, Jen. There's nothing more we can do other than make you comfortable." What went through your head at that moment?
At that moment, I was like, no, no, I've got these 2 little kids at home. That is not gonna happen. Well, and the second thing, so that was my family practice doctor, and then my pulmonologist said, because my diaphragm only worked at 20% then. I don't even know what's going on with it right now. So to breathe, right? That's the muscle that helps you breathe. And so she's like, "Don't worry, by next year we'll give you a trach and then there's a backpack you can wear that will breathe for you." Right? It's a ventilator. You're just going to wear it and you're just going to live like that 24 hours a day. And I thought, "Oh no. How are my little kids going to have their friends come over and be like, like
Oh my
I know
God.
people have to do it, but I don't want to do that." And so I thought, well, if we're at the beach, we'll have the salt air and it'll be so relaxing. And maybe that will help me like with a few more months or whatever, because I don't want to give up. That was my thing is, I'm just not giving up.
Wow. That's amazing. So you moved them. You were in Tennessee, then you moved them where?
So we live on the east coast of Florida. We're on a little island just south of Cocoa Beach. We don't live on we're 3 blocks from the beach. We don't live in some mansion, whatever, but it really is paradise here.
Wow.
We love it. We have a pool. The kids swim at Christmas. They're in the pool. It's wild. They do surf school all summer. Every day they surf. Like it is like a fantasy. I just still say, I can't even believe that we're here or that I'm here. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing. I mean, that's been 5 years since you were told that, right?
Yeah.
How old is your youngest at this point?
So my youngest today is 11. My oldest is 33.
Oh wow, you got some mileage there, right? Like to go,
Yeah. I,
like
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So this gets really crazy. I technically have 3 generations of children
Mhm.
and I gave birth in 4 different decades. How wild is that?
Wow.
So in the end of the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the beginning of the 2010s.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom did it in 2 decades. Yeah, and she had nine. She was basically pregnant for 16 years. That's what I say. She
Oh
was
yeah. Yeah.
basically pregnant for 16 years. All right. So, obviously the illness has prevented you maybe from like going and working outside the home. Obviously, it's limited your life somewhat.
Yeah.
But have you felt like there's been a stigma around the illness, maybe talking about it or how other people react to it?
Absolutely. So what's really interesting is when I started my blog and in the very beginning, I joined some networking groups at that point I had a cane. And whenever this one group, whenever they would take pictures, they'd make me put the cane out of the picture because they didn't want anyone to be seen with that. And I thought, but this is me. And that's how I'm standing here. Why are you taking that cane? And I've also found that when I have a cane or a walker and I'm in public, I'm invisible. I'm just invisible.
Really?
It's wild. But then when I'm walking, people will look at me, they'll smile at me or whatever. But when you have something like that, it changes people's perception completely. And it's very sad,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
It is very sad because I think, what if I don't know, there will be a point, when I'm in a wheelchair or whatever, and I know, yeah, people are seen very differently.
Just whack him with the kick. Sorry, I didn't say
Right?
that.
I know.
I didn't
It's
say
wild.
that.
Well, and I have a handicap spot, right? Because I can't walk
Of
far.
course. Yeah.
And so then I get out of the car and just walk. And then then that gets you a lot of looks too. Like, oh, well, if you can walk, why are you even parked there?
Yeah.
And, but really that 20 feet can make the difference of if I can go to the store or not, because I
Yeah.
have to already go through the store. And that's a hard thing for people to wrap their brain around too. But that energy, you only have so much.
Yeah, no, and it astounds me that when you walk in the store, you just don't get in one of those, wheelie things that you're. It astounds me that you choose to walk, even though knowing it's going to tire you out.
Yeah, well, so I was supposed to get a special wheelchair. They were making one for me and everything, and my husband was like, "No, no, I don't want to see you in it. I don't want you to do it. Don't do it." And I thought, "Well, this is crazy because I need it." I was in just a regular wheelchair, and then suddenly I didn't need one at all. So,
So this is great because this is a perfect segue into my next question, which is, tell me, like, you seem to be doing better now. Am I? I'm
very much better. Yeah.
very much better. So
Well,
I'm really curious as to how that came about.
so I'm going to say, okay, so the one thing that I know I did that I would recommend anybody with an illness do, and it's the hardest thing. So before I have so many symptoms. I mean, I had a full sheet, like single space typewritten, like 11 font, of
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. And I brought it to the doctor and he's like, "You need to pare this down." And I remember thinking, "Well, but how do I know which ones you need?" Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But every day I would think, "Oh man, I have this little twitch here, or this muscle hurts there, or this leg is sore." Like I would think about all my symptoms. And when I would feel something, I would think about it. I might Google it. I would, whatever. And so a lot of my brain time was spent on thinking about being sick. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had, originally my podcast was called The Sick Mom's Guide. And what did that make me? That made me the sick mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was constantly being reinforced every time I would talk about it. And so I decided to totally change it. I changed my podcast, but I'm changing it again to Fabulous Over 50. And I think this is where we're going to land. But I don't think about my symptoms. And so if I have a problem that comes up, I'll deal with it and then I let it go. And I really try not to think about it or talk about it more than I have to. So if I have to tell my husband, "Hey, I've got this new thing, we're going to need to go to the doctor," obviously I'm going to say that. But all day, I'm not like, "My head hurts, my side hurts, my this hurts, my that hurts," because the more I would do that, the sicker I would feel. And I also decided I had two huge baggies of medicine. Like you see old people with all this medicine,
Yeah.
two full baggies. I'm down to 3 bottles
Wow.
because we decided to ditch almost everything and then see what we needed to bring back. And we didn't bring anything back
Oh wow.
because those three are things I have to take that I know I can't live without.
Yeah.
But so that's been amazing because there was medicine that I was taking that was giving me so many side effects that I was having all these problems. And so and you shouldn't do that without a doctor. I'm not saying
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
ditch your medicine. But if there's something that is you could try not taking if it's giving you a lot of bad side effects or transitioning to something else, I think that's a really good idea. I think that those two things, I don't know, and just the sheer not giving up. I just don't want to give up. And if I'm really tired, I will get in bed. And I might spend a day or a week or a month in bed. I might.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me because I've heard this concept before of the power of the spoken word, right? So the person that was talking about it was how he went from running, 10 miles to 100 miles in less than a month, and which is incredible. I can barely run 3. So and basically what he brought a Navy SEAL, and the Navy SEAL basically told him, "You're never gonna say that I can't do this. You're never gonna anytime like." And then he would see him. He ran it with him. Navy SEAL can run 100, run hundreds of miles, and this every time he'd see him tired, he'd tell him, "What are you gonna say?" He'd say, "I feel outstanding. I feel outstanding." And he's like, "We're gonna go over there to that rest stop, and they're gonna ask you how you are, and you're gonna say I feel outstanding." And this was like at mile 50, right? And the guy would just, and his name is Jesse Itzler, but yeah. And they talk, this Navy SEAL talks a lot about the power of the spoken word, that words have immense power, and that when you speak them, he's like, look, you can think whatever you want, but when you speak them, you really make it the reality. So the fact that you just opted to say, I'm not going to speak these words anymore, I'm not going to give them that power, is incredible to me. And I think I agree with you. I think it definitely had something to do with it.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. I think there's a reason I'm here, but I don't know what it is. Um, and I'm afraid of doing it, like I said before, because does that mean that I'm gonna, I don't know. But I really believe that there is some reason that I'm supposed to be doing this. And I just want to be clear though, because I don't think it's fair to say that if you just are positive enough or
Yeah.
you just say the right thing, that you're going to be fine. Because if
No.
that was true, children would not have cancer. And it makes me really upset when people are like, well, just decide to be better and you're going to be better, because I know a lot of people that really want to be better. You know what I mean? And they're not. So I just want to just say that, because if you're listening, I don't think it's fair.
Yeah,
Because I've
I'm
I've had
100%
several
with you.
friends die of cancer, and I know that, um, but at the same time, I know people that have been really sick that have said, I'm really sick and I know I'm going to die, and they do. And other people that say, I'm really sick and I'm going to fight this to as hard as I can, that didn't. So it does have some power. It absolutely does. Um,
Well, I
yeah.
think another part of it too that I heard in your story, although you didn't explicitly say it, is you gave yourself purpose, right? You didn't make your life just about being sick. You wrote, you blogged, you searched for things, and I think, like it's kind of like when you hear older people, they'll have like a hobby or something like that, and it gets taken away from them, and they just deteriorate very quickly after that. So I think, having, not speaking the words, having a life of purpose, it helps. We're not saying you're cured, we're just saying
Right.
it helps deal with a chronic illness.
Absolutely. Yeah, like my great-grandfather, he was 94 on the second floor of his house on a ladder painting it. And
Mm-hmm.
people are like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what if he falls?" And he's like, "If I fall and die, I fall and die. But I'm going to live as long as I can live." Right?
Mm.
And so I think maybe, some of that was just instilled in me, that that's what you do, you push, not too hard, but you just keep going after what you want to go after, no matter what, no matter what everyone outside says, because as long as you can, you have to.
Yeah, that resilience is amazing. And it is something that's, I think, can be taught and acquired and learned and all that because, similarly, again, I grew up in a civil war and a lot of people just were like, okay, that's it, and that's not what you did. You still went to school. You still got up and tried to do things. You still started businesses. You still got married. You still had children. You still did all these things because you want to live. what is the alternative, I
Well,
guess.
see, and that's the thing. Yeah, see, it's funny because I had a friend in high school, and she was from Lebanon, and Lebanon. Sorry,
That's
it's
okay.
in Tennessee. They say Lebanon, and it's crazy. But she would go back there during the summer,
Mhm.
and she'd be like, "Yeah, there's bombing across the street, but this is my family, so of course
Mm.
I'm going to go." And everyone is like, "Oh my gosh, why would you do that?" And she said, "Because this is who we are. This is what we do. We are strong. We
Yeah.
can get through this." You know?
Yeah, I mean, even like I think about my mom. My mom moved us back in like 85. Obviously, not the best time to move back to Lebanon. Definitely not a kid-friendly environment, but we moved back. That was the reality, right? So, and she had to come back cuz my brother was being naturalized and anyway, she came back to the US to wrap up some things. And every time we would laugh because every time she would leave, the war would get really bad and the airport would close and she'd be locked out of the country with all of her children in this country. Now, granted, we were anywhere from 9 to 25 at that point. But I mean, it's still a lot. As a mom, you can sympathize, right?
Yeah.
And my sisters would refuse to go to the shelter because it was really awful down there. And everyone was like, oh my God, we're going to die. My sisters were like, we really don't want to hear that for like 8 hours. It's just not our jig. Um, but the way they would calm us down, because I was the youngest, so the way they would calm us down was they would turn the music up really high and we would dance. So there'd be these bombs outside the window and we would dance. And I've never forgotten that. It's just like, it's one of those things when you experience it, you're just like, okay, I lived through that, can live through a lot. Um, that's how
Yeah.
simple it is.
Well, and it's amazing what people can do. You
Mm-hmm.
know what people can do and get through and move forward through when and when you do something like that, like turn up the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to just sit in a corner and cry. We're going to turn up the music and we're going to keep moving. And if this is what takes us out, God forbid, we're going to go out happily,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
not going to let it, destroy us. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
My sisters used to say, God, just please make it quick. Like,
Right? Yeah.
it's gonna be, let's just make it quick. That's which is some people think it's a little morbid, but I'm
No,
just
I
like
don't think so. I
whatever.
think it's the same thing for sickness, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, just if it's going to happen, just let it happen. Yeah, quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I was going somewhere with that and now I like have forgotten. Oh, no, like I tell my kids that because my kids sometimes ask me like, how did, they'll complain about homework. I'm like, well, you don't have to do it by candlelight. Of course. That's what I say.
Yeah.
But they would ask me like, how did you do this? And I just tell them, you will rise. You never know what you're capable of until you're tested. And I think that's actually one of the detriments of some of these kids' lives today is they're never tested. They never get to believe in their ability or capability because they've never been tested.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just look at my friends. I look at myself as well because I'm guilty of it. Is I shelter them too much. I should let them go do really hard things because then they'll be happy. They'll be happier,
Yeah.
really.
They
Anyways.
really will. Yeah. I agree with you. I do. With all my kids, they all had to do everything in the house, like
Mhm.
everything. And so that when they were 18, I mean, you could live with me forever. That's fine. They had to pay rent though if they didn't go to college because I was very strict. But
Mhm.
they all knew how to do like they would even get the food money for a week and have to buy the food and budget the food and cook and everything
Mhm.
because when they moved out, I wanted them to be take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And they were so mad at the time because no one else had to do that. But
Yeah.
they all thanked me when they went to college because no one else could do it. And so my oldest son, he would throw dinner parties. He was 18 and he would throw
Mhm.
dinner parties at college. And who was the most popular guy? Well, yeah, because he could cook. And so I
Mhm.
think there's a lot to be said for pushing your kids and making them do things because I probably, in all honesty, made them do too much because of the
Mhm.
situation I was in.
It's
And when
necessary.
I look back, but at the same time, like, what could we have not done? But I think there's a lot to be said for having your kids even just do things like make them learn how to do things they need to do for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And even like I think it's also very as you grow older it's very easy to get into a rut. Now, obviously, your situation was a little different, but it's very easy to get into this rut, right? Like nothing new happens. I mean, after you graduate college and you get a couple of jobs, there's nothing really new, that goes on. It's kind of like the same thing. So by trying new things, by doing things that you find hard or scary, it lets you stay alive, keeps you as a person interesting and engaged and not just, I don't know, checking in the
Mm.
time. Like,
Right? I know, I agree. I agree. You got to keep life interesting, Maybe
absolutely.
not to the level that my life has been interesting. Tone it
No,
down a
yeah,
little bit.
we'll throw it down a little.
But no, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, because do you think that your views, and I don't know how you grew up. Obviously, you told me a little about your grandfather, but do you think some of your views on maybe just not taking hardship as hardship came from your own upbringing?
Oh yeah, I think so. I had a lot of trauma. There was a lot of trauma. I had to fight a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, I had to fight from a very young age. So,
Well,
I think
maybe it
that
was just
definitely impacted it.
preparation.
Well, and I honestly, when I was going through things, it was very hard. And my dad, because I was 24 as he was dying and I was taking care of him. And he said, I think there's a reason that you're going through all this. And I don't know what it is, but you're going to do something with all of this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of kept that in my head because, when someone's dying and they tell you something, you want to remember.
Of course.
And so as all these things have happened, I'm like, okay, what in the world? Why do so many big things keep happening that aren't necessarily good? I mean, some big good things have happened too. But I think what I'm doing now is I'm bringing that all together.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm helping women over 50 find themselves because like you were saying, you have your kids, you have your job, and then at a certain point, you're like, wait a minute, is this it?
Is this it? Yeah.
You know, is this it? And I feel like any woman that comes to me, like I have not been through every single thing, right? But I've been through a lot. So now if I go to work with somebody and they're like, you're not going to understand because I've been through this and this, I can say, no, I have. I can understand.
Yes.
And so I think it's put me in a unique position to do that. Was it fun to get this experience? No.
No, of course not. So this is a bit of a tangential issue, but as the youngest of nine, I have to ask it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference? Because my sisters always accuse me that I had it easier. Do you think there's a difference between the way that you dealt with your eldest, to your youngest?
1,000% yes.
Damn.
Yes. So, and in fact, I was just talking to my daughter, my younger daughter, about this just like last night, and
Mm-hmm.
we were saying that yes, you have the older, sicker parents, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
husband's not well, but you also have the wiser, um, more monetized parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, your first one is basically an experiment. You don't know what you're doing. They did not come with a book. You are guessing completely. All I knew about parenting was what I didn't want to do because I didn't really have a good example of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I had read a ton of books and I was just kind of picking what I wanted and seeing how it worked. Um, and that wasn't the best parenting. And
Sure.
then as it went on, it was better. So I was healthier. I had a little bit more energy back then, but I was also in a bad relationship. And I think that, that affects how we
Sure.
behave too.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm in this incredible relationship. And so my younger children definitely have it better. I'm not going to lie. They do. And I have
Okay.
honestly apologized to my older kids because it was rough. It
Yeah, I
was it was a
definitely,
little bit rough.
and I have to tell you, like, to give them credit, one thing I found as the youngest sign, and I say this to my elder siblings all the time, is the fact that we're still so close as a family. I largely attribute to them because they chose to take on the burden. They could
Yeah.
have just said, "I'm doing the minimal and I'm out of here when I'm 18, and good luck," you know. Instead, they chose to do the minimum. They chose to help raise us. And I will be eternally grateful for that. And I really didn't appreciate it until I was much older. So now I tell them often. So, yeah, they win
Yeah.
again. The debate. All right, Jen, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, but now I get to ask you one of my favorite questions that I ask all my guests. And it is, what is a weird habit or ritual you have that makes your life more joyful?
So it is really weird. I guess I just in October got this teacup poodle. She's just 3 pounds, and she's actually a service dog. She does things, and but one of the things she does is she makes me go to bed. She will actually hit me with her paw when it's bedtime and make me go to bed, and then she sleeps on my chest. And
Oh,
so I have a really hard time sleeping because I have a lot of pain and all this stuff. But when she's there, she's very soothing. And so I literally sleep all night with her just laying there.
my God, that's adorable. Thank you.
So
Well,
you're welcome.
Jennifer, it was a pleasure having you. And if you're out there and you'd like to hear more from Jennifer, you can visit her website at www.hardymom.com, where you can access all of her books and more information about her. All links, as always, in the show notes below. And I'd love to hear from you about this episode. How do you find joy when challenges hit? Hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Farrah Haidar. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll get notified when a next episode is available. Finally, I'm giving away a PDF of some of the best quotes we've had on the show. Beautifully designed to print and journal your thoughts. Email me at farrah@farrahhaidar.com and title it Quotes. Talk to you soon. Till then, chase your happy.